Regular meeting to order. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have any comments from the public? First in the live audience? Yes, Ms. Manning.
Thank you. I'm here tonight as a tax-paying resident, former police commissioner, and an individual who has spoken with two PERF employees, Martin and Caleb. I've also listened to the video of the last couple of police commission meetings. I'm concerned about items 7 and 8 on the agenda tonight. I find you're considering acting on restructuring the department while the study's underway. And a lot of people were involved in bringing that study into creation. The chief had asked for some help. First selectman did the background research. Commission voted unanimously to approve PERF. And it seemed like it was in large part for the recommendations that they would make. Board of Finance gave approval, and finally the old Saybrook taxpayers overwhelmingly approved spending almost $100,000 on the study. I believe the PERF employees are working diligently to get information. The site visit's just a couple of weeks away. The report should follow shortly after that. I think it would be more prudent for the police commission to wait for the completion of the study, review and discuss the recommendations, and only then implement changes. I believe other town officials and Old Saybrook taxpayers would agree. Maybe they wouldn't. Yet it seems to me from agenda item 7, you're poised to act on restructuring the police department tonight. I'm also concerned that item 8 might just give Chief Barry the power to act on personnel changes required to accomplish the restructuring, but I don't see what the police commission oversight is involved in, at least in item number 7. If I'm correct in my understanding of the items, I strongly suggest you table these items until the PERF study is complete and recommendations have been received. Thank you for allowing me to talk.
Thank you. Anyone else in the live audience? Seeing none, do we have, if there's anyone in the virtual audience who could raise their hand? Who'd like to make a comment? Larry, do we have anyone?
No hands are raised.
Okay. Let's move on to discussion and possible action on the meeting minutes. I welcome a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes as submitted.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion, any corrections, any comments?
No, thank you.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Any abstentions? None. I invite a motion to approve the minutes of the special meeting of April 16 as submitted.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Any abstentions? None. Thank you. Correspondence. I have nothing to report other than what I've already distributed to the members.
I know how to get rid of this.
Anyone else have any?
I don't have anything.
Let's move on to item 5, executive reports. Chief, it is your floor.
Good evening. Hold on. I think the secretary is looking for some technical assistance on how to
Turn off our phone.
quiet her phone. Let them.
Is it an alarm or just a timer?
While they're working on that, just the fiscal 25 budget process, obviously that now will go to a town meeting, which eventually will adjourn to referendum. The fiscal year 2024 operating budget, you folks have copies of that. There's nothing alarming at this point, but if anyone has any questions, I'll certainly attempt to answer them for you.
It looks good to me.
And Jill had noticed amongst the voluminous stuff that she received for this meeting, She noticed that I think it was the emergency communications, Jill? Is that
Yes.
what it was? Did not have the summary total on the bottom of it. We've reprinted that, and that is in front of you all now.
Are there any questions on the budget process or on the operating budget?
No, all good for me.
Okay. Off budget accounts, does anyone have any questions on those? Personal matters, chief?
Yeah, just a couple things to update you on. So Patrolman O'Connell has deployed. She's now overseas. She'll be overseas for a good 5 months. So please keep her in your thoughts and your prayers as she is doing her duty to serve her nation. One of our dispatchers, Kristen Godnick, she will be leaving to attend a military school. She's actually going to Germany for a couple weeks for that. So obviously these two vacancies, while we certainly support what they're doing for our country, obviously it hurts the operation a little bit. So we'll be down a dispatcher for a couple weeks and a patrol officer for close to 5 months. So again, please keep your thoughts and prayers for Rachel in your mind. 2 employee resignations. One is Mr. Eric Lawrence, which we'll spend some time talking about later in executive session, if the commission so chooses. And then I believe the commissioners all received a letter from, sadly, a letter from Sergeant Christopher Palmieri, who is choosing to leave our agency and go to Middletown in hopes of getting better benefits. So I didn't know if, Mr. Chairman, you want to talk about that letter at this point? Wasn't mentioned as correspondence, but everyone does have it.
Yeah, it is a great loss, I think, to our department.
Tremendous.
And I suspect that in the negotiating process, the negotiators will be mindful of it. I can't say more than that, since this commission is really not part of that process. I hope they are mindful of it.
Yeah, I'll just follow up that you would share that I appreciated his letter, and I am very sorry to see him go.
Yeah, we talk about regrettable and non-regrettable turnover. He is regrettable turnover. That'll be a tremendous loss. He's actually one of the only last, native sons of old Saybrook in the police department, people that were raised here, went to school here, and now proudly serving here. So that's it's just sad to see. It's not a good thing. We tried to head this off, right? And the commission endorsed heading this off months and months ago, but here we sadly sit.
All right. Any other questions?
No, thank you.
Professional development?
Sure, very exciting that Patrolman Charlie Moriarty has graduated the police academy. He's begun field training this week. He also just passed his emergency medical responder national certification exam, so we're very happy about that. And Patrolman Brian Mora has just completed field training officer school. That's something that people are hand selected for. When you pick a training officer, you're looking to have them train someone and then emulate their training officer. And that just points out what a great job Patrolman Brian Mora is doing. We're hoping that he turns Charlie Moriarty into his version of Brian Mora.
Good to know. Questions on that?
So does that mean Moriarty's gonna not be a patrolman trainee anymore?
Well, he'll be a patrolman when he's done with field training.
Field training.
So the trainee, okay,
So you don't become certified
okay,
until you finish your field training rotation.
great.
So we hope that'll be the 400 hours. If there's remedial training, there's remedial training, but hopefully there's not.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. The activity report, anyone have any questions on that? We continue to be our usual pace.
Yeah, we're very busy. The personnel are doing a phenomenal job, especially as we're down on resources. The phone certainly doesn't stop ringing because we're short on police officers, and that means everybody else has to do just a little bit more and spend more time at work, which sadly means they're spending less time at home. So that work-life balance that our officers are very much interested in obtaining is non-existent right now because everyone's doing what they need to do to put the job first rather than their families first to make sure that the town of Old Saybrook is well protected and well served.
Okay, any other questions?
Well, I think you might have asked this last time, but the EMS calls are obviously like almost half as much. Is that because we're down people to take the EMS calls?
No, we would be in a violation of state statute if we chose not to
Okay,
go
so
to
there just hasn't been as
emergency call.
much.
Well, we're only, through April.
I mean, like compared to the other months.
April's not complete,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Chief, how about the on-site visit?
Yeah, so I just want to show commissioners, let's see if this works.
I have a quick question.
Share.
Before we go, can you just tell a little bit more about the work-life balance and what actually is happening in their world? Like when you mentioned they have to now pick up more hours or they're staying from their family, like what does that mean? On an average, are they
It
putting?
means that they're at work more than they normally would have to be, right? So our police officers work either a 40-hour or 32-hour a week rotation, depending on how their schedule is forecasted out. And so that means that they're having to work extra shifts. Either they're coming in early, staying late,
Okay.
working a completely extra 8-hour shift on a normal work day, or on one of their days off, working an 8-hour day. You have to keep in mind that the way the schedule works, a police officer gets a weekend off a month, one weekend a month. And that's not been happening for anybody, right? So they're on their one Saturday and Sunday off, a majority of the time they're working overtime. And that's what takes away from their work-life balance, right? So anytime you're at work, right? So the work schedule doesn't necessarily tell you when you have to be at work. The work schedule says when you're not at home with your family. And because we are short-staffed for a variety of reasons, and I think I've made my reasoning very well known, that work-life balance is destroyed. And so things like that, with other things going on, sadly lower morale. And now we have a police force that's being overworked with a lower morale without a work-life balance. It's just not healthy.
Thank
It
you
is
for
not.
stepping up.
Unfortunately, that's how it is in most of the world. Like people I deal with, they don't have enough help and their people are working crazy hours. Nobody wants to work.
It's interesting you point that out, Renee. So I have found that the turnover problem is not only existent in the Old Saybrook Police Department. I have found it to be in other police departments, other states, and other businesses as well. So it seems to be a trend. It's not specific to Old Saybrook. So thank you for pointing that out. I appreciate that.
Okay. There's no other questions on that? Let's move on to item 6. And my suggestion is that we compress 6 and 7.
We're not done with 5.
Can I do the
Oh,
perf on-site visit?
Yes,
Oh,
we're
I'm
on
sorry.
G. That's okay.
Skipping ahead.
So I just wanted to give the commission kind of a 50,000-foot overview of everything that I've been working on in preparation for the perf visit, as well as to make sure that the perf team has all the necessary information they need to satisfy the contract with the town of Old Saybrook, which does not include, as our guest in the audience stated, a structure or staffing study. Does not include that whatsoever. Asked and answered with the perf team. So when perf initially engaged the town, they kind of give us like a laundry list of things that they needed to review. And I asked them very quickly, how do you want this material? Is there like a Dropbox? Is there something like you go on the perf website, you upload it? They said, no, just keep emailing us and emailing us. And I went, just wasn't comfortable with that. I thought that was just a lot of email after email after email. And I thought it would be best for the team and myself when we're collaborating to make sure that everything is in one spot. So I went to GoDaddy. I bought an $11.99 domain called perfstudy.com, and I created this website. And so their team has been able to go to this landing page and take a look at anything at all that they requested, and everyone can collaborate doing that. So, the 2021 turnover study, for an example, there's a little explanation. There's all the letters that were written at that time requesting the turnover report from me. Here's the video of me performing the turnover report. Here's the actual PDF of the files. So every tiny little thing that perf wanted, we have uploaded to this thing. They wanted a copy of the annual town reports. Going back 3 years, there's the annual town reports. So again, we were trying to do stuff. We showed them our employee SMART goals. I thought they would find that interesting. So as this commission knows, during the strategic planning process, all of our employees have to list out SMART goals. So we gave them the employee SMART goals for 2024 and 2023. So they can go down. All names were redacted to make sure that that's, that would be inappropriate. But they can certainly see what's on our employees' minds and how we go about, allowing them to do what they want to do. Let's see here. We also did, we listed the proposed agency structure, just in case they did want to comment, but there again is the book that we've given you and the things that we've been talking about. There's certain links to certain commission meetings that they can review based on the different topics that we've been discussing. We talked about our accreditation pathway that's there. They were very interested in some CAD data. So we gave them data by year to date and kind of all the reports that you guys get at your meetings. But we gave them to that going all the way back to 2021, even before we switched over to our new records management system. We gave them some of the raw data from our employee feedback sessions as part of our strategic planning exercises. So we went back a couple of years and, there's all those questions that I briefed you on or have asked to brief you on. We haven't been able to do it in a couple of years, sadly. But they'll be able to see, complete raw data from anything that they wanted to see. So they can go through, again, all names, if any names were listed or redacted, but they can actually see exactly what the employees were saying based on any topic. So I think we've built pretty much a pretty good comprehensive collaborative site for them to use. And I think it, what's that?
Can we visit the site?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt you.
Yeah, perfstudy.com.
Thank you.
But I think it was important for the commission to know what I've been working on and how much we've been trying to help the perf team coming into town. So I can assure you that this is hours and hours and hours of work to put it all in one easy to use place. And I think that the team, they haven't said differently. I think that they're finding it helpful to go there. The analytics certainly show that they're using it robustly, which is great. So the perf team comes to town on May 6th. They'll be here for, I think it's 3 or 4 days. I don't think that they've locked down where they're conducting interviews. We have reached out at their request to our dispatchers to see if they want to participate. I did that on Friday. I have not heard back from anyone. We know that our police union is meeting with its representatives sometime this week. And the police union will decide on their level of participation. But despite that, I'll be welcoming them to the department on the 6th. I think, Chubb, you have your interview with them on the 6th.
I think so.
And I think the first selectman does. And then they sit down with me for an hour on the following day. So really looking forward to it. I sent them some, part of their scope is our promotional process, which is weird because I've never heard one complaint about a promotional process. But that's not on the site because even though I redacted the names, it'd be so easy in a small PD to, look at someone's write-up from an oral board exam and know who you were talking about. So I did send that to Martin and his team today via email. So a couple more things that we want to get to them before they come out. But when they're here, we certainly want to make the most of their time. And that's that. The scope is still confusing to us inside the building, quite frankly. I remember that when I wrote those 3 letters and the police commission unanimously endorsed doing something, I believe then the first selectman came out and said he had to do this type of study to help him in negotiations. I know that the union has raised some concern about that, and now the first selectman is saying this is not for the purposes of negotiations. So it's a little imbalanced response. We're trying to figure that out. But needless to say, anything perf wants, we've supplied it to them in a very easy to use format. And I'm eager to sit down with them for that 1 hour when they come to town.
Thank you for being so willing to cooperate.
I take it there is nothing, can any citizen
Yes.
access that?
Yeah, as soon as they're done, I'm gonna take the site down, but sure, it's on open domain.
I found it yesterday.
And how did you load all that onto the site? Scan it or
It's work, sir. I mean, so, you know, you've made comments, derogatory comments about when I say I've been lacking bandwidth. I've been working really, really hard on this perf visit. Very hard. This takes time, which is bandwidth.
We'll pass on that. I know it takes time.
Takes a lot of time, yeah, and necessary, right? So our citizens have paid $100,000 almost for this study. I want to be responsive, right?
Good.
You know, and so I've had some interactions with the perf team. And again, eager to meet with them.
Well, I think this is pretty comprehensive.
Thank you. And that's all I have on their visit. Has everyone met with them?
I
have.
Yeah.
Have you, Carl?
I have. Any other questions, comments?
All right, thanks, Larry. I'm gonna stop sharing.
As I was starting to say, I suggest that we compress 6 and 7 into one item. It's really all about the same set of issues, I think. So to get matters rolling, I would invite a motion to, for somebody, to make a suggestion for a structure, and then we can have a second in discussion.
So the only thing I would say that is I know I had the opportunity to meet with Commissioner Pratt. She has handouts that I printed for her on some thoughts that she had. So I don't know if a motion right off the bat, and maybe some collaborative conversation.
Does that mean somebody wants to say something next with that
They
name?
can until the next public comment.
There aren't any hands raised.
There's no hands raised, they're just- I think those are just buttons. Pass that to the other side of the table, would you mind? Thank you.
So yes, the chief and I did meet yesterday afternoon. It was very helpful for me and beneficial, and I appreciate the time that you shared with me, especially on a Sunday, piggybacking the family time. So thank you.
You're welcome. You want to talk about what we just handed out?
Oh, yeah. Well, I've given people time to read it. It's pretty self-explanatory. So I came in to the meeting with my own idea of a structure, and being a visual person that I am, the chief was kind enough to create something online. And we plugged things in, we took things out, we changed things around. And at the end of the time together and really understanding the positions, the flow, the role and responsibility, what you have in front of you is pretty much what we came up with as something that would be helpful to everyone within the department. Choosing 2 lieutenants, the purpose behind that was to have an operational lieutenant and a dispatch lieutenant that would, am I explaining that right? So jump in at any time.
So the department, as everyone knows, is divided into 2 halves.
Okay.
One is field services, that's all our sworn personnel,
Mhm.
and one is support services, that's all
Okay.
our non-support personnel. So one of the things that Jackie asked me was, what would help the quickest, right? You're down a second command, what would help the quickest? This would help the quickest. This does a couple of things. It's a version of that option B that everyone was very attracted to last time. What this does is it increases some morale in the building because it allows us to promote 2 people very quickly from within to 2 middle management roles, right? So we get to get our staff excited about movement. That's positive, and I'm looking to do something positive for our staff now. By creating the 2 lieutenants, it allows one to be responsible for one side of the house and one to be responsible for the other side of the house. And then after several months, flip-flopping, so they become cross-trained
Yeah.
and they understand both field services and support services, which puts them in a great position if you're ever looking to do a promotion in the future. So part of my role is to provide internal professional development, internal leadership professional development to my staff. This structure would allow me to do that. So not to take words out of Jackie's mouth, but she did not want the captain position. So we've been talking for a while about the 2 lieutenants, maybe in 3 or 6 months, competing for that captain spot. and have the structure be chief, deputy chief, captain, lieutenant. And she thought that was a little bit too top heavy, so we talked about that. And we came to the consensus to present to the commission tonight, not having that captain position, keeping the 2 lieutenant positions. Those positions would be union positions. So if the commission thought that this was a good structure, tomorrow morning, we're meeting anyways at 10 o'clock, we would say the commission has changed the structure and we'd like to place 2 lieutenant positions in. They'll be bargaining unit positions and they just become part of the current negotiations. I mean, we're right there right now doing the salary structure of the department, so it actually makes it easy. It's not very cumbersome to do. And then for the deputy chief position, then you start that search because we know that that's going to be a longer search. We know that a lot goes into the contract and picking things. And quite frankly, we know that we can't choose a salary for deputy chief until we know how the union contract is going to pan out, because you need to know what your top union earner is going to make as a base salary before you set the salary of that next person, right? You don't want your deputy chief making $3,000 more than your master sergeant, or in this case, a lieutenant. That would make absolutely no sense. So that really has to be settled first before you can come up with a compensation package for a second in command. And as I spoke to you about it last time, it'd be great to have these 2 lieutenants part of that selection process. So
Can I,
did
first
I,
of all, thank you.
did I get everything?
Yeah.
Okay.
And thank you for jumping in.
Yeah, no problem.
The
Thank you.
language is a little bit, so
Yeah.
I appreciate the clarification.
Thank you for doing that, and yeah, thank you for the clarification. I don't know why I'm stuck in this, but I watched last meeting because I wasn't here.
Mhm.
You said something about switching them between administrative and operations. Is that basically the same thing that's going on here? Or what?
No, so like, the support side of the house
Okay.
includes all of our dispatchers, right?
Okay.
And so that's very operational in nature.
Okay.
Includes the records division, which is again part of our emergency communication division now. Takes care of everything like animal control, professional standards,
Okay,
accreditation, all those things are under that support services kind of
Okay.
framework.
Yep.
Whereas field services, the day-to-day, answering the 911 call, investigating crimes, solving crimes, which we do very well, et cetera, et cetera. So
okay,
it involves 2 different skill sets, and that's why I would want each to flip-flop so they can be equally trained in both sides of the house.
okay. And did you, because of your conversation with Jackie, is that sort of why it morphed into this and away
Yeah.
from ad? Okay, yeah, that's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome, thank
I
you.
think it's great that you want to make 2 lieutenants in the union. That's the only way I would support this thing. But the bottom line is the second in command has to do discipline. And how can he do discipline while he's in the union? I mean, that's not gonna fly. Because that's against all union rules. A person in the union can't discipline another union. So I think that we should look for a second in command. We have it in the budget and do that before we pick the lieutenants. Because what if the lieutenants, or what if the people that are in the police force right now, when we put that second in command, have all the qualifications and want to do that job? So then if we make them lieutenants and then all of a sudden we gotta make them second in command, and it's just gonna be all wishy-washy. But I will not support it unless they're in the union, because I think that's very important to the morale in the body of policemen. So I think we need to go with the budget that we voted on a second in command. Get the second in command, have your sergeants be involved in the process while they're there. They're very qualified men. And then we pick 2 lieutenants from within. They can be involved, even though they're master sergeant and sergeants, it's just.
Can I respond to any one of the?
You can respond to
Comments,
anything I
okay.
say.
So thank you for your comment. So first of all, they would have to be part of the bargaining unit. There's no question about that, right? So that's not even a choice that we would make right now. So if you're going to make a second in command position at all, whatever it's called, anything beneath that must be in the bargaining unit, right? So either the town would say, let's put you in, or the union would say, we want impact bargaining, right? So either way, they're gonna be in the bargaining unit. So cross that out.
Explain impact bargaining. I don't.
Impact bargaining is something that's in the middle of a contract where working conditions have changed and the union has the statutory right to come to the table and say, you've changed our working conditions, we demand to bargain.
Got it.
And the town's response should be, sure, when would you like to meet? right? Because if they say no, and it goes to the labor board, and all the labor board's gonna say is what? Go back to the table and bargain what you get, right? And so it's silly, I think it's very silly to have an adversarial relationship with such a small bargaining unit.
Can we talk about that tomorrow?
Well, we have to approve lieutenants first, right? Well, let me comment on something else you said, because I think it's very, very important that it be clarified. So maybe in your past life, no one in the union can be involved with disciplining, but that is not the case in the law enforcement world. Think about that for a second, right? We have sergeants that run patrol shifts. They are supervisors. They have supervisory responsibility, which includes coaching and counseling, and if necessary, recommending or implementing discipline. So there are times where I'm not here, but I'm working through a sergeant to coach and counsel or discipline or place somebody on paid administrative leave. And that's a bargaining unit member doing that work. Additionally, we can task bargaining unit supervisors, like a sergeant or a master sergeant, if we approve it, a lieutenant, to conduct internal investigations. They just can't investigate up, but they can investigate down.
So they
And-
can, okay.
and
that makes
so-
sense, yeah.
And so while it might seem on the surface that a union person can't investigate a union person, then we wouldn't be able to do anything.
No, that makes sense.
And so when a sergeant's working, I have 3 sergeants in the back of the room. When they're working, part of their job is to administrate the bargaining unit agreement with the personnel that they're having, right? So if they choose not to follow an element in the contract, filling an open shift or denying a meal break or what have you, they can actually cause a grievance for the town to defend, right? So a union member, as a supervisor, can violate the contract. We don't want them to do that, which is why we give them the training to do that. I understand the thought process of saying we need a second in command right away, but the right away is not happening, guys. It is a process. So if you're asking me as your police chief, what will help me? Captain DePerry's been gone for a while, right? What would help me quickest? 2 lieutenants. What will help the morale the quickest? 2 lieutenants.
The second in command wouldn't be in the union, though, right?
No, but you can do both at the same time, right?
Isn't that sort of what you just said, Mark, that you were
Well,
worried?
and I understand what you're saying, because I was in a similar situation that they're in. I was a charge man, so I was in charge of an area, and I was also the grievance rep and the rep. And so when I was the charge man and I had a problem with somebody, I had to go and do the discipline and then had to represent them the next breath. So I kind of know what you're saying, I understand it, but I just.
You know they're all gonna use charge man tomorrow now, right?
Well,
You know that.
well, they
Okay,
can.
just I'm gonna call you tomorrow and say.
Get
we're
the
using
charge
that
man, you get $2 an hour more, so.
They get a little bit more than $2.
But-
$2.
but Mark,
I know, I'm
you-
just saying.
You opened up your comment, Mark, with the second in command being in the union.
Well, no, the lieutenants.
Oh,
I will not support this unless they're in the union. To me, that's very important. These guys have worked too hard
Right,
and have too many years where they have to give up their union seniority to get a promotion.
I thought you said the deputy chief was gonna be in union and
Oh, no,
discipline was a
deputy chief
problem.
can't be in the union.
Okay,
And
that's
so
what I thought.
here's another thing to remember. This can be done simultaneously. Right? There's nothing that says we're a one-trick pony here with our promotional processes. The lieutenant process is codified. It's actually in your document, right? We just have to look at the requirements tonight, make sure that the commission's good what we got done. I post that tomorrow. We do our task analysis, right? We do our assessment center. They come in front of you, you make decisions. All while you're starting to figure out your whole deputy chief thing. You're not gonna have a deputy chief for at least 6 months.
You said post. Is there any requirement of advertising as well?
Internally there is, yes. So whoever meets the qualifications that this commission would decide, I believe there was a comment before that the chief gets to willy-nilly do, it doesn't happen that way. There's nothing I get to do without some sort of approval, right? I can't spend a penny of taxpayer money without an approved budget or it fits into a category. And I can't promote people without you. I can't run a process without you. Can't hire anyone without you, right? So it's a very well-defined process. I think you can do both at the same time. I think the 2 lieutenants right off the bat will benefit the agency. And I think you'll be pleased with that. You may, to Mark's point, You might say, well, why don't we wait for them to each flip-flop for a couple months and then interview? Maybe one of them is your deputy chief. I don't know. But let's start the process.
So with all this said in the simultaneously thing,
Mhm.
can it, see if I'm doing right, can we invite a motion to vote on the second in command as well as one to vote on 2 lieutenants and take it from there?
Let me speak to that.
Okay.
I had thought that the idea that you and Jackie had worked out was park second in command, and I think that's a good idea. No, just park it. Have one lieutenant. I hadn't appreciated that the concept was 2. I thought it was 1. And I thought that was great, because if we have an internal candidate rising to lieutenant, we've already got a budget. It's already in the budget, so there's no basis for objecting on that ground. It gives you more help than you have now. We don't have to worry about the master sergeant position and whether it ages out or, I forget your technical term, but whether.
Through attrition.
I know that.
Through attrition, right.
That was one of our vocabulary.
If and when our current master sergeant decides that he'd like to do something else, I think we can address at that point whether we keep the position, whether we make it into another second lieutenant position, what we do. But I think going a little more slowly within the budget that is about to be approved, hopefully by the town, is the better way to go right now. And I have been, originally I was reluctant to have a lieutenant be in the union, but I'm persuaded that if we're going to get a good internal candidate, we're not going to probably get one without being in the union. I'd rather keep this internal. I think that's important.
Can I take everything you just said and just frame it just a tad bit differently?
Sure.
So I think it's important for the police commission to make a decision on structure that will be the structure for a while. I don't think we want to be an organization that's changing a structure every other year. It's not healthy. And so what I would ask is for the commission to make the bigger, bolder structure change and then decide what to actually fill. So hear me out. In the budget, we have money for a second in command position. I believe that if the commission tonight did the following, if they change the department structure to chief, deputy chief, 2 lieutenants, master sergeant, there would be enough money in the budget to fund the 2 lieutenant positions that would be in the union, that we pause on the deputy chief position. So we don't fill it, which means it doesn't require funding. And the money for that also can fill a vacant patrolman position. So we can keep boots on the ground, delivering service. We can create a level of middle management, which I think this organization sorely needs. We make 2, so independent professionals can learn both sides of the house. And there's a deputy chief position that's vacant, but it's on the structure. And when this commission is ready, maybe it's after you get this perf study, maybe it's after you see the 2 lieutenants at work for a while. Whenever this commission is ready to fill that, then we go hand in hand to the Board of Finance and say, this is what we'd like to do. This is what we've done. This is what we like to do. I think that's the healthiest and best case scenario for our police department right now. Plans for the future, doesn't break the bank, inspires upward mobility, it's all healthy.
I'm 100% on board with that.
I would
What I'm
be,
concerned about.
I would be very curious to see how, if you take 2 sergeants, and I assume it's 2 sergeants that you would.
Well, if you read that, remember, I was never a sergeant. So it would be very hypocritical of me to sit here in front of this body and say, You have to be a sergeant before you were a lieutenant, because I wasn't. And it worked out okay. Some might differ on that, but I think a majority of us can actually say the work product's been there. So I can't sit here and say you gotta be a sergeant first. That's not what our regulations currently say. You have to change that, right? All that's in that book I gave you. And so I think the healthiest thing that we can do for the agency is to create that structure. Remember, and I know Jill likes when I point this out, this is not adding any extra cops. This is keeping only 25 full-time law enforcement positions. It's just moving titles and structure around.
So your suggestion then is to take the money that we were going to allot for the second in command and use it for the increases for the lieutenants?
Yes, but without saying that there's going to be a deputy chief spot, those lieutenants can't be in the union. Because then that position becomes the only other position other than the chief of police not to be in the union. Then Mark's not on board. So we need the box in between the chief, make a captain if you want, I don't care. But you need that box there to stay empty to allow the lieutenants to be bargaining unit members. I highly doubt, and I don't want to speak for any of the folks in the police department, but I highly doubt that if we had 2 lieutenant positions that were outside of the union because there was no buffer box, I don't know if people would be willing in this climate to go from a secure union position to a complete at-will position.
You've convinced us on that.
Yeah, I
The
think,
thing that bothers me.
But sorry. Mark.
Go ahead, Joe.
What I don't understand, and maybe Pat McHale is the answer, is I thought under our collective bargaining agreement, only people above the position of master sergeant were not in the union. This would say, okay, we're gonna change that. We're gonna make it up to the position of lieutenant.
Correct.
Is in the union.
Correct.
Why does that say you would still have to have 2 people above that? I don't get that. Why?
Sure, yeah, no, let me explain, let me try it in a different way. So you're gonna have the police chief, right? Every police department's gonna have a chief, like it, love it, whatever, boom, top box, gonna be chief.
No union.
No union, not me.
I'm gonna write
I'm in my
this.
own union, I'm in the 3-star, gold star union. We have our own stickers, party, it's great.
no,
The next position underneath the chief can be out of the union by state statute,
Can be. But-
should be.
That's what I want to have McHale's assurance about.
Yeah, and that's what we've always done. So let's go through history. Chief Mosca, Deputy Chief Spira. Deputy Chief Spira, not in the union. Chief Mosca, 4 lieutenants as second in command, all 4 lieutenants, not in the union because there was no buffer box. Chief Spira, Lieutenant DePerry, no buffer box, Lieutenant DePerry, not in the union. Chief Spira, Captain DePerry, no buffer box, not in the union. Ed Mosca, Captain Tom O'Brien. O'Brien not in the union, no buffer box. When he was promoted to deputy chief, still not there. So the second position, the position right underneath the chief of police, is always outside of the bargaining unit. When we create that box that we're gonna leave empty under my proposal, and then those 2 lieutenant boxes, those 2 lieutenants will be in the union. Either the town's gonna agree to it, they're gonna ask for impact bargaining. Either way, that clause, the recognition clause that you're speaking of, will eventually say that the bargaining unit represents everyone from the position down.
I understand that. I think I'd like to have some legal opinion on it.
Yeah, but Chubb, we're not waiting another month for legal opinion.
No. We can adopt something conditional on getting approval.
I borrowed a couple, you wrote all over. I'm giving Carl's to look better on the television.
Sure. I wrote it on mine.
So this structure that Jackie and I collaborated on, and she did a lot of research. She described her kitchen table to be filled
Oh, yeah,
with
here's mine.
organizational charts. I mean, she was assigned as a dog catcher to a sergeant. I mean, she was going deep down. And I had to bring her back. I had to bring her back and say,
Patrol, bike
that's right,
patrol.
let's, there's a lot of stuff going on. I said, let's just focus on
Well, I
the,
don't know.
right?
I mean, I
And
wanted
so,
to make sure I covered
when
it.
you look at this illustration, you have executive leadership, right? You have middle management and you have first line leadership. You can open up any executive law enforcement leadership textbook, and this is the structure of a police agency.
Mhm.
Over the past 15 years that I've been your chief, I have personally sacrificed, don't say thank you, I'm not looking for that. But I have personally sacrificed this level of management. I've taken on more responsibility so that we could have more boots on the ground, police officers that were doing direct service delivery. Less people in an office, more people on the road. When we go to this model, and the way I've preached for the last 15 years, and these gentlemen here know it, and the folks on the shift watching virtually, everybody in our agency, all 25 full-time law enforcement professionals, have a patrol responsibility. No one is too good to answer a call for service. That's why we all wear the badges. That's why we all took an oath. I can go unlock someone's car or go to a burglar alarm or point my gun at someone and say, show me your hands. I'm a cop, just like the brand new guy that just graduated the police academy. So whoever we promote for as long as I'm here will have to have that same philosophy, which means if a lieutenant's working and two sergeants call out sick, guess what that lieutenant's gonna be doing? Gonna be working the road. But you can never lose your technical competency, your technical proficiency as a law enforcement leader, whether you're a middle manager or you're an executive leader. And the only way to maintain that is to do the job, to work shoulder and shoulder with your peer in blue and see what they're going through on a daily basis. It's the only way you can recommend or affect change. So I do believe that this structure would work really well. So just again, real quickly in review. My request tonight would be that the commission adopt the following structure. Chief of police, you can call it deputy chief or captain, totally up to you. Captain has less stigma to it perhaps, but your call. 2 lieutenants. That's the top part of the structure. If you do that, the next thing that we're going to do is talk about the requirements to apply for the lieutenant's position, and then I'm off and running. And then within 60 days, you have 2, 3, 4, 5, I don't know, however many people sitting in front of you in the hot seat after they've gone through our assessment and you get the results and you interview them. In this commission, the 7 of you choose the 2 new middle managers. And then after that, it's up to you guys what you want to do. You want to wait a year and see if these 2 want to apply for a second in command position and then go down to 1 lieutenant? Totally your call. But let's give the folks inside our agency a chance to excel. I would really like to see that. I think it would help us with retention.
I think it's great that we make 2 lieutenants, they stay in the union. What's gonna happen with losing 2 sergeants that are doing
Or
patrol?
sergeant and patrol.
Could be sergeant patrolman. We just don't know.
But are we gonna have to make 2 more sergeants?
We have to make another sergeant right now anyways, because one of ours is leaving.
So should we make 2? Well, because we know that we're gonna be making, if we make 2 lieutenants.
So the good thing, Mark, and that's a great question. The good thing is you never have to tell me how many sergeants we need to make. My job is to always have a promotional process going, and then I present them to you and you choose. That's your job, not my job. I have to get everyone ready and get them here, then you decide. I will tell you where the holes are. So clearly Sergeant Palmieri is leaving. What do you think I need?
Sergeant.
A sergeant, right? And so we're gonna do a promotional process for the position of patrol sergeant. And eventually the last part of the process is you guys. They'll sit here, you'll ask them questions, you'll choose.
But I don't think that was Mark's question, because I'm still stuck trying to figure out if we're stretched now. And we're taking people out of the ranks and moving them up into middle management. Aren't the underlying ranks going to need to be backfilled?
Well, not the lowest patrol level, right? Because we're not adding people, we're not adding sworn positions. And so,
But how does the job get done without?
because
putting them
we're,
back in?
because
Unless the lieutenants are just gonna be doing the same thing they've always been doing.
that wouldn't be the case. But we all are responsible for the patrol responsibility. So we may choose, when we do our impact bargaining, we may choose that a lieutenant's schedule is 5 days on, 2 days off, instead of 4 days on, 2 days off, which gives the town 17 extra days of work from an employee every single year. That would help the operation, right? Working maybe half a shift patrol and half a shift doing administrative work might be the way it has to be some days until those lower ranks are filled with the people that you've just approved that are going to the police academy. Right? This puts everything in forward motion. If we always waited for the right moment, we'd never do anything. There is never the perfect time. I need this commission to lead tonight. I need an organizational structure that will help me with retention, that says to our employees, we value them, that gives them opportunity to move up, that parks a second in command position that you guys can do something with when you're ready. But let's put some good stuff in motion.
You know, if we're gonna agree to this process, okay? I think when the motion is made, since we're in negotiations and, you know, that stuff isn't taken care of, that in the motion, we have an MOU in the motion so that it is taken care of, that these guys don't fall through the cracks by accident. And I think that really needs to be in the motion if we do it, since we're in negotiations and we have no lieutenant there.
So we can't put in, I understand what you're saying. We can't put an MOU in the motion because an MOU has to be negotiated between both sides. We're not negotiating with the union tonight. But we know that through your motion, the lieutenants have to be in the bargaining unit. And in order for the position of lieutenant to be in the bargaining unit, there has to be bargaining. And so because we're in the process of bargaining, if you change the structure tonight, we go to a meeting tomorrow. My guess is the union president, who happens to be sitting in the room, is going to tell the union representative before we start at 10 o'clock, hey, the commission just added 2 lieutenants. We'd like them to be in the union. We're gonna walk in, they're gonna walk in, and probably the only thing we agree on at the beginning of the session is that these 2 lieutenants should be bargaining unit members. And we just make them part of negotiations, that's all.
I know it's simple, but I don't want anything to fall through the cracks. I think it's so important that the integrity of these gentlemen stay in the union. And I'm telling you, I will fuck this to the bitter end if they're not in the union.
Mark, don't say that to me, because I'm the one saying they should be in the union. Look, I even wrote on the sheet a little box.
I
It
know.
says union.
It's easy to take that out of there easy too when you're doing your paperwork too. You know, I just don't wanna see.
Yeah,
I don't
but
do
you're
that.
in negotiations, aren't you? You're part of them.
No, he's not. He's an observer.
Oh. We'll observe loudly if anything goes wrong.
No, you can't. I still am concerned that we're getting out ahead of our skis here. We had a comment from the public that we have a PERF study coming, and I know your view on
I asked
the
the,
likelihood of.
I asked the perf team, are you doing anything with agency structure? No. I said, well, I'm still gonna throw it up on the website just in case you wanna comment. Not, they said it's not our scope, it's not what they're being paid to do.
I had conversations with them too.
Have they told you something different? Are they giving
Yes.
instructions?
Yeah.
They
Well,
said
let's
that
know.
they would comment.
But
What does that mean?
This is not, I don't think this is a place to get into that.
My concern is the same as
Let
Chuck's.
me, I'm sorry,
Oh,
if
sorry.
I'm
Go
speaking
ahead.
slowly here, Renee.
No, go ahead.
Another thing that concerns me is that I've asked you repeatedly, what are your plans? And my concern is that we are in the position in the fairly near future of having to look for a new chief because you've decided to do something different, which is absolutely your right. One way to look at this is a better structure and it makes the next chief's job easier coming in. Another way to look at it, though, is that this presents that new chief with a structure that he or she might not prefer. My guess is that if we could figure out a way to have a chief of police, 2 lieutenants, no second box, and still take care of the union issue, that would be a better answer. I don't like the idea of a figurehead box that's there only to escape some requirement.
What do you think we have now?
We have,
There's a box that's vacant,
Right.
sitting there. So if tonight the commission said, let's just fill that box, you're 6 months away. And here's some other good news for you. And I know you like bringing up, am I leaving, not leaving, da, da, da. Here's the great news.
Chief, I don't like bringing it up. Then let me interrupt you
But you
because
do all
bring
the
it up all
time,
the time.
Chuck. No, you bring it up
All the time. I didn't mention it tonight, you brought it up. But here's the deal, right? Let me give you a fact.
Let's take a pause for a minute.
I am the police chief right now,
Right,
right? And this is the structure that I'm recommending.
understood.
If I was a new police chief coming in and I walked in knowing that the box underneath me was vacant and there was 2 middle managers that were learning their job, I'd be elated, because now I get to observe them and come to the commission and say, I know how I want to fill that box. A structure is just that. You need a structure, but you're not going to be able to keep these 2 in the union if you don't have the box there. It's not healthy. Chief's away for a week. He's on a cruise, unreachable, and you have a bargaining unit member running the whole department. That's not the design. It's just not. And so that's why you need that buffer box. But the good news is, even if you approve them, say you go along with my theory tonight, Chuck, you're not funding it, you're not putting a person in there, you can let it sit there as long as you want. And everyone else gets their way to allow the lieutenants to be in the bargaining unit.
But to just follow your hypo, we have an empty box. You go off on a cruise. A lieutenant is now, running the show.
I'm talking big picture when we're ready. But you have to establish the structure now. It's not healthy to keep changing the structure of the agency.
What would you like to see, Chuck? What is your ideal vision?
Well, maybe, before we do that, did Renee have something to say? I think we missed out on what.
Oh,
we
Yeah,
had.
sorry.
Renee was about to say something.
Last meeting, I was looking at it and I'm thinking, yeah, we need to move forward. But then I took a look at the roster, which was purely just for this purpose.
Thank
Wasn't
you.
gonna negotiate with anybody, just so everyone's clear on that.
Yeah, not implied, but thank you.
Insinuated then. We can play word semantics all night if you want.
Opposed.
Can we just get on with it?
Can you just not comment on everything that everybody says because you're not the queen bee here? I'm talking right now.
Oh, yeah, okay. Definitely act
Well,
like that.
As
So-
chairman, I would urge civility on everybody's part.
I'll be as civil as I'm being treated. And we know how that's going. My concern is when I looked at this roster, is that we're gonna be top heavy and we're not gonna have enough people for patrol. We've already heard repeatedly how we don't have enough patrol people. I look at the sergeants and I understand we say, well, we might not necessarily take a sergeant to be a lieutenant, but if you take a patrol person and make them a lieutenant, you still have to fill that space. And I don't think safety wise that that's a good idea right now. I understand at one point we need to figure out middle management and administrative jobs, but I don't think right now is the time. That's my point. And
So Renee, do you think for a second, love me, hate me, whatever, do you think for a second, I would recommend anything that is unsafe for my police officers? Is there anything in the last 15 years that would exemplify the fact that my decision-making is so haste or so improper that it would cause my police officers to be unsafe? Do you understand the weight I carry around on my shoulders 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, that I have employees that have to wear a bulletproof vest and guns on their hip, that they come home safe to their families every single night and day? There are jobs being done in the police department right now by members of all ranks. If we did that, some of those jobs would go away and be absorbed into this level of middle management. And so some patrolmen or some sergeants that are doing administrative things no longer will have to do that. They'll be relieved because right now they're being overtasked to do that. And those middle management things that because we don't have the level or the layer of middle management is being shoved down the pipeline can come back to where it belongs and let other staff, patrol sergeants and patrolmen, to focus on their jobs. This is healthier than how we're operating today.
At the risk of introducing what may be an unrelated subject, have you given any thought to easing the burden on the patrol by making private duty jobs optional so that if no patrol division employee wanted to pick up a private duty job, didn't volunteer for it, instead of mandating someone to the position, you let that private duty work go to a private duty flagging service or something like that, just to ease that burden on the patrol.
Yeah, so this structure has absolutely, positively nothing to do with that subject, like just nothing. And so right now, that work that you're talking about is bargaining unit work. The minute we start deciding what is and what isn't on any particular day, based on any particular set of circumstances, we are violating the collective bargaining agreement. We are violating past practice. And so, while one patrolman might think that that's a swell idea, anybody else from the bargaining unit can file a grievance based on my decision. And so when I manage the law enforcement agency, and I know that part of my job is to manage the agency in accordance with the collective bargaining agreement that's been legally and lawfully negotiated between the union and the town, I can't have all these little one-off scenarios. And so what might make sense sitting around a table talking with coffee does not make sense in this world, because I have to be consistent and fair and manage in accordance with that agreement. If the union tomorrow wants to say, hey, listen, we're not interested in doing this stuff anymore, totally different reason. But I know that
Well, that's
our
a
police
false
officers, I know that our police officers count on that money.
And I'm not saying take it away. All I'm saying is, if you don't have volunteers counting on that money and saying to themselves, I'd rather have this day off to be with my family. Is that something that could be bargained and, you know, address? I'm trying to think of how to make this work. You've said it can work within the budget. You've said it can work within the 25, man roster. But you've also said that there's, tremendous stress already. And so I'm looking for, is there a way we can relieve some of that stress and still preserve for the union the right, but not the obligation to pick up the private duty work?
So I think private duty work job is a completely different subject other than agency structure. And your agenda right now is agency structure.
Yeah, I
right?
would suggest we move off of that.
Okay,
That-
as I said,
that
it
could
may
be
be
something
related.
for future.
The reason
It's
I-
definitely not related. Other than one of the lieutenants might be scheduling the private duty jobs, as opposed to the patrol sergeants right now, who are trying to balance working the road, supervising their staff, going to calls for service, and doing that scheduling function.
Our per diem office is allowed to help with the,
They are in accordance with the contract.
that's what I,
Yep, so they have a separate rotation list that goes after the full timers.
and that's how you can fill that with the per diem guys, because the per diem guys are still in the union, correct?
Yes.
Okay, I have a
Are
question.
you okay with this?
No,
Okay.
and if I could finish my thought before.
I kind of thought that you
Oh, I'm
needed more time.
Well, I sat here and I listened to everybody for this whole entire time, and I thought I was pretty respectful, and I took, 30 to 60 seconds? I'm not trying to change anybody's mind, but this is where my mind is made up, and that's all I have to say. That's my opinion, and I think I'm entitled to have it. Like
Mhm.
1,800 and something people said I could sit here and do that, so I'm doing it.
So what is your opinion? Can you just clarify what structure that you're looking for? 'Cause
That I would rather, I don't wanna do the lieutenant positions right now. I don't. I'm more interested in figuring out a succession plan up top and not doing the lieutenants immediately, see how some of this other stuff shakes out with who's coming and going and staying, who makes it through the police academy. And I understand you're saying there's no perfect time for that. It's like having a baby. There's never a perfect time. You think you're prepared, you're not, you don't have the money. But I don't see why all of a sudden this is such a rush. This right here was how we had it at one point. Actually, there's more lieutenants.
No, we had 4 lieutenants.
Well, yes, that's what I'm saying, but we had a structure like this, and then that magically went away. So I don't see what the rush is to get this back. It's been working.
Well, so last
So that's just
meeting,
my opinion. I'm not looking for a response. I'm giving my opinion. That's it. I don't need a diatribe. I'm
responding.
giving my opinion.
great, I'm not responding, but I can say, last time we had a great meeting. Chuck, you even commented at the end of the meeting.
Yes.
What a great meeting it was. And during that meeting, I would say, maybe excluding Renee now, but I would say everyone is very attracted to option B in the proposal. And option B was chief of police, deputy chief, 2 lieutenants. That eventually would morph into chief of police, deputy chief, captain, 1 lieutenant. The only difference that we're talking about, the only difference in the Jackie Prass color version is that we don't morph into that second.
Yes.
That's it. It's the only difference.
Well, I wasn't in favor of morphing into that second version
So
anyway.
if we go to figure 1.3 on option B, it's just this part right here.
That's right.
And that's what everybody seemed to be for last night.
Okay, so my question to you is,
Mhm.
how would be doing the 2 lieutenants first help you with your bandwidth rather than getting a second in command to do exactly that?
I think that's a great question.
It is, that's really good.
So if we're going to hire a second in command from outside of the agency, first of all, it's gonna take longer to negotiate some sort of terms for a contract before we even post the position. But then 2, that person's gotta come and become acclimated to our operation. The 2 lieutenants are already acclimated to our operation. They're just moving into a higher level position with different responsibilities that are gonna get mentored. So the 2 lieutenants are plug and play. The captain is search, negotiate, welcome in, or deputy chief, welcome in and say, this is Old Saybrook. This is how we do things in Old Saybrook. They're gonna have to be trained on our computer system, right? I mean, all the things that we do for a new hire as a patrolman would have to be done for that external deputy chief or captain. Whereas the lieutenants do not have to do that. They're plug and play on day 1. That helps me.
You know, what Jill is saying, how do the sergeants feel about becoming lieutenants and still have all the responsibility that they have? I know they're all qualified to do it because they do a great job now, but how do they really feel?
We'll find out and see who applies for the positions.
Okay, that's the way you want to do it.
I'm confident. Well, I can't pre-negotiate a promotional process.
Well, I
We would
know-
have different meetings with the union. Let's not do that.
Yeah, but I understand the
Yeah.
question you're
Yes,
asking.
so I'm confident that we will see more than 2 people apply for these 2 lieutenant
Well, I hope
positions
so.
if we keep the qualifications as presented. And I think that'll be healthy, very, very healthy for our agency. You understand, right now, we're not giving our staff anything. We're not giving them an ounce of hope, a light at the end of the tunnel that's not a train. We're not doing anything. This does that. This says, we value you. If you work hard, you can move up. We're creating this whole second new level of middle management. This is positive. Let's just band together and do something positive.
So let's say tonight we decide that we want to go with 2 lieutenants. How long would the process take to get 2 lieutenants?
Yeah, so I told you I would most likely be able to have someone here, a team of them, in 60 days to sit in front of you. That's contingent on successful negotiation of the lieutenant pay
Yeah.
and maybe schedule in the collective bargaining agreement. But think about all the stuff we don't have to worry about, right? Because they're gonna be in the union, we're not changing vacation, we're not changing sick time, we're coming up with a salary and maybe a schedule. That's all we're bargaining. Whereas with the captain or deputy chief, We're talking about what does the pension look like? Well, how much sick time, how much vacation time, how many years until you vest? What's the vesting percentage? None of that exists with creating this level of middle management because they'll be bargaining unit members.
Carl, you've been pretty quiet over there. What do you got to say?
I can't pretend that I know better than the recommendations to how to structure the police department. So I'm just listening to everybody's comments and trying to come up with my
Sorry, I
own
took your
solution.
handout too.
Personally, I like the 2 lieutenant option. It seems logical. The Jackie method seems logical to me. It
I
just
saw my
does.
little side once.
But, I mean, those are my personal thoughts. But I can't pretend that I know better than what's recommended by the chief or the department, because I just don't.
Okay, fair.
Could Sky become a lieutenant?
So Jim Sky could
I
be a
do have
lieutenant.
some experience with cross-training and putting people in one position and then having them learn another. I've had some epic failures.
Really?
So there's definitely a learning curve.
At least this is all police.
So be prepared for the curve, that's all.
So, Mr. Chairman, just for fun, could we take a straw poll on where people are on this? Because otherwise we could talk in circles for an hour.
Well, I'm thinking that
Can we just vote?
I have,
Yeah, we don't have to follow Robert's rules.
Let's go off on her.
I have
Well,
a
we've
question.
taken straw polls before.
yeah, we have.
Yeah.
I
It's
have-
allowed under.
Well, just
Yeah,
because you just
consensus.
vote, you
Yeah.
can't just vote.
My concern remains the charade of the empty box.
It is not a charade,
Uh,
because at some point, our intention is
We will.
to have, we will fill that, yes,
And we could actively pursue that.
100%.
Well-
You could figure out what the terms are, and then once you get that satisfied, that's when you go to the Board of Finance and say, hey, listen, this is what we chose to do. It gave us immediate relief. It did some other positive things. Now we're ready to post this position. This is what we're not rushing to do it. We're doing it right.
Is there a possibility that this money could be discovered, figured out within the budget as is?
I don't think we'll be able to make 2 lieutenants and a deputy chief or a captain, less money for a captain, right? With all of that money. Maybe it's close, depends on what we negotiate, for the lieutenant salary, but I'm sure there'll be something that's needed to.
Because I mean, we are
To the
going
end.
over 2 budget cycles as well on this,
Correct.
so.
Right.
So with that money for second in command,
And you'll have, I'm sorry, and you also have some patrolman vacancies going into July, which saves you some money. In the
There
salary.
we go, so that's the answer.
but that money is there in the
Well, you're
budget.
building a structure and we have to look at what the long-term costs of that are going to be. And I know you have assured us that you can do it within the current budget. And
Well, it depends. I mean, if
Yeah.
tomorrow morning Carl Fortuna offers our bargaining at 5% over the next, 5
Oh.
years, then we gotta go back and tell the Board of Finance we need more money. But
Sure.
I don't know what's gonna happen tomorrow, because it's not tomorrow yet.
Right, but assuming that that historic patterns have been followed,
Mhm.
which I think is the only way we can plan.
Well, we wanna do better than historically, because we wanna keep our
Well,
guys,
no.
but yes.
No, we wanted, I'm talking budgeting,
Gotcha.
and you have always delivered on budgeting.
Correct.
And forgive me for pointing. So that, I remain, my concern is, how do you actually do it? Well, I
Try.
like the
right?
idea of I'm repeating myself. I like the,
So let me just say this again in a different way. There are tasks now that are middle management tasks that are being pushed down from the executive level, spread across patrol and first line leadership. Those tasks would come back and be seated with one of those 2 lieutenants in that middle management line. That will relieve sergeants and patrolmen of existing administrative responsibilities so that they can concentrate on and grow in their patrol positions. So that's the answer to your question. There are things being done now by patrolmen and sergeants that would now be done by lieutenants. which would allow patrolmen and sergeants to just focus on their primary responsibility. That's how it works.
And you are confident that taking those career expanding opportunities away from sergeants is not going to have a negative effect.
It's not, because if they want to retain those assignments, then what should they do? Compete in this competitive promotional process, sit in front of you and convince the 7 of you of why they should be your 2 middle managers. That's what this is all about. Nothing should be handed to anybody. Nothing.
No,
And I'm not saying that you were saying that, but I'm saying, let them be, if they enjoy administrative work, then there's sometimes a little bit of a sacrifice to get there. I was the nighttime quasi midnight shift lieutenant, but showed up every morning at 9:30 to do administrative work because I knew I didn't want to stay a lieutenant for the rest of my career. And that worked. And so I would look for the same dedication, the same commitment in a mid-level manager who wants to move up. This is not about getting a job where you don't have to work nights, but not the deal.
Chief, I think we're speaking past each other because I was focusing on the sergeant who enjoys the variety of tasks that he or she currently has. And some of those tasks are being taken away.
And so my response to you was, let that sergeant that enjoys that part of his job
But
compete for the promotion.
But I'm positing a sergeant who enjoys both parts.
Sometimes,
So are you saying it?
sometimes they're incomparable, right? So you could take a look at the 3 sergeants in the back of the room and they'll tell you some days, their days are just too busy and they can't get to that administrative task because we have such a young staff, right? So the patrol sergeant right now is going to every call to supervise, every call to mentor, reading reports, correcting reports. We don't have a tenured staff. So their first line leadership, their first line supervision role is multiplied by 1,000 right now because we have a younger staff. As the staff becomes more tenured, a sergeant's job gets a little bit easier. We're nowhere close to that. So the sergeants are working very, very hard at supervising. That's why when we do our staffing calculations, remember supervisory positions are not included. We do it in Saybrook, we shouldn't, because the job of a supervisor is to supervise and mentor, right? And so I believe that doing this will allow them to focus on their primary task, which is healthier.
So if we have 5 sergeants now, but Sergeant Palmieri will be leaving, and then we open up the 2 lieutenants, so there could be the trickle down where some patrolmen might, are you then gonna open up the sergeant for the 2? Or the
If they
open
come
roles?
from the sergeant rank,
Right.
we don't know,
Okay.
right?
All
So my recommendation is tenure, minimum of 8 years as a post-certified police officer. Again, I told you that I went from patrolman to lieutenant, and I would be hypocritical if I cut that out.
Right, that's why I'm asking.
But I think it's a great professional development experience to open it up to more people. Maybe you are a patrolman who applies and you don't get the job.
But what if he's
But
only
you-
got 1 year?
You can't,
do
you can't, because the minimum requirement, as I propose, is 8 years as a
Oh, so-
post-certified
okay, so-
police officer.
But isn't there
Right.
there's only one patrolman who has that?
No, there's a couple.
I only have Malardo.
8 years as a post-certified police officer. That doesn't mean with all.
That they don't have to have
Oh.
the rank
Oh,
of
okay.
sergeant to apply for lieutenant.
That's okay.
So then
You
you're,
can lower that. You can make it 5 years. You can make it 4 years. The commission can do what they want.
so you're also showing your patrolmen that there is growth as well as your sergeants or whomever,
Correct.
basically the entire group.
Yeah, it's a retention booster. It's a morale booster.
I understand that, but my point is always when we're interviewing people, I ask them if they understand the benefits, I ask them if they understand the shifts, that they're not gonna have great shifts. And part of it, when you come to Old Saybrook, don't use this as a placeholder until you can get somewhere where they're gonna have more things. Our hierarchy, I think for almost the majority of these people, probably besides Master Sergeant DeMarco, Sergeant Walsh, and I look at that, most of those people were hired when we had the current hierarchy. So there was no promise of these other jobs. I'm just, Yeah, I know that I'm already outvoted, but I just need to make my point. You can't, I just don't feel
Well-
comfortable that you set the precedent that we'll just create new positions to keep people happy. Like, if we went to go interview for a job and there was 10 people applying and there's one job, you can't expect that company to say, I'm gonna make 9 more positions and you can all get jobs. I don't wanna set that precedent. I
So-
understand people want upward movement, I get that, but I hate to say it, you know what we have here, we don't have a SWAT team, we're probably not gonna have a drug task enforcement group. I mean, I don't know.
But in a way,
I don't wanna just set false hope.
So when I was hired and Master Sergeant DeMarco was hired, the hierarchy of the department was as follows: chief, captain, lieutenant, detective sergeant. That morphed over time in our very young careers to chief, deputy chief, lieutenant, master sergeant. There was never not a lieutenant until Lieutenant Negazani retired. And then when Deputy Chief O'Brien was leaving, that's when they promoted the 4 lieutenants. That's always been our structure. During my
Prior to that,
tenure,
it was not.
well, Renee, then we're going back into like the mid-80s.
Yes,
right?
we are.
Okay, well,
But I'm saying
I
for
think
the
the town
current
and policing has
employees,
changed a
For the
little bit.
current employees, none of them were here with that structure.
Okay, but what does that mean? Right, it's not up to a new
All
patrolman
I'm
to decide
saying
what's
is
better
when
for
you
the
take a
agency
job in Old
structure. It's
Saybrook-
my job as the chief to present that to you as the police commissioner. And I agree with you. Renee, you have people that sit in front of you that yes you to death to get a job. Some of the people that have left our agency to work in other departments to get better benefits, they are rock stars in their agency. And part of that is their initial law enforcement training that they got in Old Saybrook. It's just a fact of life. They might not like to hear it, but it's true. Where they cut their teeth as cops play into every single part of their day that they police now.
in a way
that's
that
what
our,
you're saying though, right?
well, in a
About
way,
the
our,
benefits?
our current structure is sort of like we're setting it up like we're placeholders. That we're just, step offs. If we add lieutenants, it gives us more of a
Right, but
viable
what I'm
option to
saying is
stay.
everybody who's here right now was hired understanding what our hierarchy was.
But
That's what
I
I'm
don't
trying to
think,
explain.
I don't think when you apply for a patrolman position, you're like, golly gee whiz, how many lieutenants do they have? They sit here because they want to get certified, so in 2 years, they can find an agency that's giving them the benefits where they want to call a career home. That's what it is. That's why we're a revolving door. Hopefully tomorrow and succeeding days, we're gonna create a benefit package that keeps them here. That's the secret to that sauce.
You know, we can go with the getting 2 lieutenants, but we don't have to come up with a structure tonight. But we can go and we can make a motion to put 2 lieutenants in, but we don't have to come up with a structure yet.
But that's a structure. So if you add, we have no lieutenants right now. So if you add lieutenants, you are changing the department structure, which is what we're here asking for. Folks, I have to be honest with you. I think we might be overthinking this a little bit. And let me, just give me 1 second. I think when all of you go home 3 days from now and you're sleeping at 3 o'clock in the morning, you're probably not thinking too much about the agency structure. I am, because I need the agency to be operating safely and efficiently and effectively for the citizens and visitors of the town of Old Saybrook. I've gone to school for this stuff. None of you have. I appreciate your role as commissioners. I have presented you with a document that you all praised. I presented you with a collaborative discussion last meeting that everyone was pleased with. We've now come to a compromise that streamlines exactly what we really liked in option B. What's the worst thing that happens here, folks?
Yeah.
I'm completely wrong and you get to tell me that at a meeting? Whoa, let's try it.
Or we revise it down the road if
Correct.
it works that way, right?
And tomorrow, there's not 2 lieutenants, right? It's going to be a process. Negotiations, promotional process, which you're involved in. No one gets to be a lieutenant until you guys make a motion to vote for them to be appointed as lieutenants.
Can we make that motion?
So if we go according to the Jackie sheet, I think that's what we've named it. Someone would make a motion to change the department structure to chief, pick a name, because you gotta do that in the title, captain or deputy chief, 2 lieutenants.
We can't use second in command.
If you want to, but it looks a little odd on the organizational
Okay.
chart, because no one's title is second in command. You don't salute that, it's just, you gotta come up with a name.
Okay.
So you can use captain as a lower level emotional placeholder. And then if this commission decides you want to make that the deputy chief, when you decide to do it, you change the name.
You can even make it major.
You can make it a major if you want. Yeah, do whatever. Clinton had 2 majors instead of 2 captains. I mean, do whatever you want. But you have a captain in the structure right now, right?
You have a captain.
So we
That's
have a
what
chief and a captain. All you would be doing is adding 2 lieutenants. That could be your motion. We're gonna add 2 middle management positions of the rank of lieutenant to our organizational structure. Done. You don't even have to say anything about the captain because the box is already there.
Don't we have to identify it?
No, it's there.
No,
It's currently there. Currently there.
Oh, because it was there.
It is
no.
there.
It is
It is square there.
Got
So that's how I would approach it. I would just add that middle management layer. Don't worry about changing captain to deputy. Worry about that down the road. Let's talk to the union. Let's get them in the union. Let's create the process. Let's get them in front of you and you decide.
So why don't we do it?
Well, I would couple it with no increase in the sworn officers.
Well, we can't do that. You would have to specifically have a motion to add positions.
So you're
So-
adding 2 positions.
No,
of
no,
lieutenant?
No, we're just adding the middle management layer to our organizational structure and the positions of lieutenant, 2 positions. That's it. The only way we could go from 25 to 26 is if this commission votes to expand our sworn full-time staff from 25 to 26. That is not on the table. No one is asking for that. That would be a whole separate thing.
Because then we'd have to go.
And listen, by the way, if we did that, you'd have to vote them in anyways. Like, I can't slip an extra whole body into the department. Right? Some people on the Board of Finance still question how many cars we have. I haven't personally paid for a car, thrown it on patrol. So there's a process in our municipality.
Well, where I come down, listening to all this, is that the morale of the department is a very important consideration. The fact that we are not expanding the manpower of the department is a comfort. The empty box is a concern, but not a fatal one. And my only remaining stumbling block is this a structure that we should adopt now, or is it a structure that we should get the input from the next chief, given current circumstances?
Jackie, could you do me a favor? Could you pull a Kleenex out and, like in a football game, throw a flag? There is absolutely, positively no public discussion about me vacating my office. There's none. So let's stop having that as part of this consideration. We're talking about the structure of the current agency.
I was getting, I think, where you want me to go, but
Okay, but the flag on the play had to be thrown.
Chief, I've heard you in many different settings, all public, talk about that.
But with no timeline.
I also think that this is one person's opinion
Yes.
and may not necessarily be shared by others. So I don't think it needs any more explanation than that.
But where I end up is convinced that with the money being saved on the second in command vacancy, and assuming that we're not told by council that there's a problem with it, but for tonight's purposes, I'm willing to take that risk. And
What happens if council
Support.
tells you otherwise?
if council tells us otherwise, I'll bring it to the attention of the commission and we can talk, bring council here. I don't know that that's gonna happen. I don't know.
So are we making a motion under the condition of advisement
No,
from council?
No,
So here's what I would do.
we'll just make it a clean motion.
Make it a clean motion to add 2 lieutenants as middle managers to the organizational structure. We vote, hopefully in the affirmative. Tomorrow morning, we'll be meeting with Labor Council. Because he's gonna be at negotiations.
And he-
We're gonna say, hey, last night, we created a level of middle management. We want those 2 lieutenants to be part of the bargaining. If he grabs the second issue and throws a flag in the play, then we stop. We don't do anything until this body reconvenes. If I said, well, sorry, and just did it, I would be doing something improper. And I promise you I won't do that. Otherwise, we're able to move forward. After you vote on adding the 2 lieutenants, we have to look at the recommendations for the requirements to apply for the position. That's part B. Put them in the structure first, then we decide who can go in those boxes.
So do we have another meeting to go over the,
There's no reason why we can't do that.
no, I mean about the role and responsibility?
That's my job.
Okay.
Yep, so they become my subordinates, and I've kind of already hinted at how I would use them.
I want more detail than that, frankly. I'd like to know, for example, where does internal affairs reside? They did reside.
Support services.
Okay.
You're gonna outline all of that?
Sure.
Okay.
We're gonna take the captain's responsibilities and divide them in 2. With a little patrol responsibilities, that's how it's gonna work. And then anything that I see fit. So if we have an issue plague the town, 1 lieutenant might be assigned to handle that issue. Right? So nothing is cast in stone with law enforcement executive positions. We gotta roll with the
You
punches.
gotta respond to what's out there.
I'm gonna make the motion that we add 2 lieutenants to the middle management structure of the department.
I'll second that.
And that they be union positions. That was
I
important.
want, yeah, and put that, and add union position to that motion, please.
Yes, revised as such.
So moved.
Do we have to
Any
second?
further
Second,
discussion?
Mark, second.
Okay, you have the motion and second, Jim?
Yeah, yep.
Any further
The motion
discussion?
back, please.
Add 2 lieutenants to middle management to the structure and that they're union positions.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
Thank you, commissioners. That's a ginormous
Can
step.
you introduce your team?
I can do that a little bit later.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll have a part later on in the meeting.
Because the
Thank you.
next thing we had to go for is the qualifications.
So I would ask you to go to, there's no page numbers. So go below option C, where it says position qualifications.
And I thought this was a nice, brief, succinct.
So here is what I'm offering. So if you see
Oh,
option
I'm
C,
already here.
yep, underneath, position qualifications. So the next decision point for the commission, I'm reading from the booklet, is to decide on the qualifications for the position or ranks to be filled. Historically, the police commission has deferred this decision to the chief of police. While I willingly accepted this responsibility for the 2 lieutenants that have been appointed during my tenure, I feel it is important for the commission to be involved despite what structure it selects for our agency. Below are the recommended qualifications for various positions. So let me bring you through them, and I'll give you some talking points.
I
And then
only
it's
want to
up
talk about lieutenants because that's the only one.
That's all we're gonna do.
Okay.
Yeah. So right now I have tenure as minimum of 8 years as a post-certified police officer. Now, the last time that we made a lieutenant, we go to that posting that I showed you. It says, the last time we did the patrol sergeant thing, which was not healthy. So in the past, we've done 4 years. I bridged the gap in between the patrolman tenure and you gotta be a sergeant and came up with 8 years as a post-certified police officer. So if you were a police officer in any other department, combined with your years here, you hit 8, you can apply for this position.
I
Your
think
choice.
8 is reasonable.
And we have people in the department who.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The next one I asked for was supervisory experience. Last meeting, you said, well, they only get supervisory experience if they're a sergeant. I said, oh, no, no, no. There's lots of projects that someone can oversee, right? So you could be in charge of pistol permits, or you could do a training, or you could do whatever. You could run the DARE unit, right? As a patrolman, and you can have supervisory experience. So I think that we take, because we're a small agency and we've been pushing down that middle management level of leadership responsibility to our patrolmen and sergeants, everyone has some sort of supervisory experience. For education, I put either an associate's degree, but a bachelor's degree preferred. And certifications that they have to be an instructor, they have to be a field training officer, and they have to have the ability to become an emergency medical technician within a certain amount of time of being promoted.
The one that I have a question about is what's involved in being a post instructor?
Yeah, so a lot of our tenured staff are, so they go to a methods of instruction class where you literally learn the mechanics of putting together a lesson plan, classroom management, teaching in all 3 domains, right? The affective, psychomotor, and cognitive, despite whatever your topic is. And then they attach themselves to one of the law enforcement certification areas. So they pick an interest. Maybe I love penal code and I become a penal code instructor. Maybe I believe in de-escalation and I'm a de-escalation instructor. The folks in the back of the room are so diverse and so talented. Sergeant Walsh right there, he's our youth instructor, right? He's specialized in that over the years. No one better than him to consult on juvenile law. And so a lot of our tenured folks have that instructor certification. It just shows that dedication and that passion for law enforcement.
If we can take some of these things out and add things to this.
You can take them out, you can add, you can do whatever you want. The only thing that I would suggest, Mark, is that you don't make it so narrow that you don't get a nice field of people coming before you.
That's
I
right.
think that this is an opportunity for the commission
Less
to
is
interview
more.
a lot of people.
Less is more on this one.
Well, you know, like you got associate degree and bachelor's degree. I feel if an officer took the time to get his bachelor's degree, it takes a lot of time to do that versus an associate's degree. Because an associate degree only takes 2 years. And I think that should be taken out of the qualifications for education and just have a bachelor or above. I have no idea who's got any qualifications.
So that what you do, because it's in the budget, right?
Yeah, you do.
And so what you don't want to do, my opinion, is you don't want to not allow people to apply and experience the professional development opportunity of which is the process. When you're sitting in judgment of a candidate, if you internally say, nah, you need your bachelor's, that's how you can form your opinion. But I think that the requirements should stay where they are to open up the field even more.
Just have, I went on their website, something about my favorite pastime. Intermediate and supervisory certificates.
They
You
do,
know
so
what that-
there's first line supervision classes that all of our sergeants take and some of our patrolmen have taken.
Oh, okay.
And then there's different leadership opportunities. So one of the things that I get to do, now that we've approved the middle management structure, there are some classes that you can't get into unless you hold the rank of lieutenant or above. So now whoever fills these 2 lieutenant positions, now they're going to be able to be exposed to different levels of law enforcement leadership, professional development, just because of their title. And that'll be healthy for those 2 individuals.
But we could put in like, is that what you mean, post-instructor certification?
Yeah, so post-instructor certification is different, but I believe that that is a very good foundational characteristic to have in a leader.
Okay.
You have to be able to teach.
Can we put like a plus, but not a requirement of maybe speaking 2 different languages?
What would you like the plus to be?
Bilingual
Spanish,
preferred. multilingual,
Well, so you're gonna narrow the field.
Yes,
I don't think we
substantially.
want that in
not like
there.
but not like a requirement, but like a,
Then when
Extra
you're
credit.
interviewing,
okay,
ask the
can ask.
candidate,
okay,
Yeah.
do you have another language?
Okay.
But we can't say to our current staff, right, going back to Renee's point, if I joined as a young patrolman, if I knew in order to get promoted, I needed to take,
you have to learn German.
correct, right? And so that just, that wouldn't work. So I understand where you're coming
Yeah.
from. It's valid. It just, it is not proper in this setting.
That might be good for deputy chief.
Maybe. So I've given you 4 things: tenure, experience, education, and certifications. So the question, the decision point to the commission is, do you want to add another category, or do you want to adjust anything in those 4?
I like these 4.
And then,
As do I.
what I would need is a motion to authorize me to conduct the promotional process for the positions of lieutenant with the position qualifications as detailed in the proposal.
I forgot what you just said, otherwise I would do it.
Someone could say so moved,
So
to make the
moved.
motion, I suppose.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's legal or not.
I invite,
I want to just hear it again.
Yeah, and it was really good the first time. I hope
I'm
it's
sorry.
just as good, Jill, the second time. And so what I would look for is the commission to authorize me to conduct the promotional process for the positions of lieutenant with the position qualifications as detailed in the proposal.
So moved.
Second.
Excellent. If I could vote, I'd say 4.
okay. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstaining from voting.
Thank you. You have given me my marching orders. I shall carry them out.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we can bind it not only 2, but 3 of them. 3 of them. So that's efficiency.
And number 8,
What?
That's what we just did.
We
That's
just
what we
did,
just did.
yes, but it's gonna come back to us though, I mean, at some point, again,
You're part of the process.
yes,
Yeah, I can't make lieutenants by myself.
okay,
that's,
Can't do it.
then I'm good with that.
I mean, I could, they could wear the little things on their collars, but it just, it wouldn't work.
no, no,
You
it
just
needed to
don't
just
apply
be
for the
clarified.
job.
No problem.
Okay.
Actually, a lot quicker than I thought.
Mr. Chairman, do you want to move up the other stuff? So people don't have to.
Well,
I think we just need a movement right for quick minute.
yeah, I think we should move up the 10 through 12. And then go into executive session for the employee matter. I invite a motion to amend the agenda to move item 9 to item 12.
Second,
We need a,
First,
so moved.
thank you. So now I need a second.
is there a second?
I'll second. Thank you.
And we need a super majority vote on this, so please raise your hand if you're in favor.
All in favor? Thank you.
Unanimous, okay. All right.
Want to do those 3 and then take the,
Comments from the public? Are there any comments from the live audience? Any comments online?
Mhm.
Please raise your hand if you have a comment.
Wait, go up.
Seeing, Larry, do we have, we're looking for raised hands. I don't see any.
No, there are no raised hands.
All right. Comments from the chief
I
of
didn't want to
police.
have my clock go
I
off
have none.
again.
How about thank you?
I've said thank you several times.
I thought you said I have none. Comments from police commissioners.
I'm good.
I'm happy that this is done.
I'm excited about this.
Jessica?
Mhm.
Carl?
I'm a little concerned about some things we talked about during the week. And I need some clarification that we didn't break our bylaws by not seeing the stuff that came that I never got, was never privy to, but it was important enough to call in other people from other departments, and legal counsel with whatever, without having a chance to review any of it.
I share your concerns on that.
So it's frustrating. It's very frustrating.
Renee?
Are we gonna lay it out on the line or no?
Wait, are we talking about that in executive session?
I have no idea.
What are we talking about?
He's talking about the whole.
No, I said, when are we gonna talk about it?
I don't know, maybe it should be an agenda item, but I just wanted to voice my concerns. I was shut out of a conversation and it went all over the place.
We can talk about agendaing that at our next meeting, or maybe at a special meeting, if you would prefer.
Thank you, sir.
I don't have any comments.
I have a comment. So do we have something Officer of the Year?
We do,
When was the last time we celebrated that?
every year.
Okay, because I don't, is it online updated?
I don't know if we've updated it online or not.
When do we do that?
I think it's important for everyone to understand that the website is not our first priority.
No, I think she
Oh,
means when
no.
is officer of the year.
May.
Oh,
Did
so
we
it's
do it
coming
last
up.
year?
Oh, that'll be nice. Do we attend that?
You can, I suppose, yeah.
Oh, okay. I would
Yeah,
like to.
I usually make an announcement via email.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I have no comment.
I'll make a motion to go in executive session.
Yes,
I would like to take a break for a minute, please.
well, let's make the motion to go into executive session and identify the people
Yes.
present.
So what I would like to do is invite Master Sergeant DeMarco, Patrol Sergeant Walsh, and Detective Sergeant Williams to attend as well as me.
I'll make that motion and add it, that's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Is there
So
a,
moved.
is there a second?
Second.
Jessica, second?
Third, yes.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No.